Welcome to today's Chelmsford Learning Partnership Trust training session, which focuses on celebrating the range of creativity happening across our schools. Let's start with a Do It Now task. Describe the tongue of a woodpecker. If you haven't had a chance to consider your answer, then pause for thought and discussion. So what influenced your thinking? The purpose of the woodpecker, the shape of the beak and head, what it eats, your knowledge of its environment, your consideration of what I might be trying to get at. Did you know that its tongue is wrapped around the back of its brain to help protect the bird's brain from injury during high-speed pecking? Describe the tongue of a woodpecker, wrote Leonardo da Vinci on one of his to-do lists, next to sketching cadavers, designing elaborate machines and stitching costumes. Da Vinci filled over 7,000 notebook pages with questions, doodles, observations, sketches and calculations. He nurtured creativity as a habit and skill every day, and it paid off. Da Vinci's work reshaped multiple disciplines from science to art to engineering. I would like today to begin by giving you a gift from me to you, to thank you for supporting the think tank this year, for sharing research, putting up creativity habits of mind posters, fine-tuning your lessons, speaking those creative verbs, and for challenging your teaching and the learning of your students. This is your own Da Vinci notepad. Today and over the next few months, I would like you to jot down your teaching and learning thoughts and intriguing questions. I hope that you would like to share this with me in 6 months' time. It is worth noting at this point that a similar study has been done with 7-year-olds and only one pupil lost their notebook, so I have high hopes. In the study that they did, they also had a 100-question challenge, which was inspired by the book How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci. Creativity is often paid lip service, but in reality most schools are currently experiencing a creativity gap, with significantly more creative activity occurring outside of school. Numerous psychologists argue that creativity is not just an enrichment or add-on in the classroom. It is a definable, measurable set of psychological skills that enhance learning and will be necessary in the 21st century workforce. Let's begin.
It's called a brain network, and you find that creativity draws on multiple interacting brain networks. In particular, it draws on 3 brain networks that seem to be absolutely essential to creativity across whatever field it is, whether or not it's science or it's art. One of those brain networks that's important is what's called the executive attention network, and the executive attention network allows you to integrate lots of information in your head at one time, hold stuff in your working memory, maintain strategies that you're currently working on at one time so you don't forget what your strategy is or forget what you already did and then redo it. The executive attention network is also helpful for inhibiting obvious responses or the first things that come to your mind. And so creativity is important to access remote associations. So the executive attention network is going to be helpful to inhibit the most immediate obvious things that come to mind. People who are very good improv artists, for instance, the first thing that comes to their mind is usually not the most creative, so they tend to wait for the second or third thing, and that's one of the improv activities. So the second major brain network that's important is the default mode network, but I like to call it the imagination network because it's very active, it's highly active every time we turn our attention, our focus of attention inward, and we focus on our daydreams, we focus on our future goals, on when we're ever trying to take the perspective of someone else. So it's very important for having compassion for someone else because it allows us to imagine what someone else is thinking or feeling. And so that's the imagination brain network. And then the third major brain network that's important for creativity that I think is a very underrated brain network, it's called the salience brain network. And that's associated with what is most salient in our environment, what is most interesting to us. Before we think through consciously about a creative activity, and even before we activate our imagination, there's a process before both of that where we have a subconscious process where the salient brain network tags things as interesting or not interesting in our environment, and it either feeds it to our imagination network or to our executive attention network to pay attention to. Creativity involves the interaction of all 3. It's when we're captivated by the moment, we're mindful, but we're also imaginative, and we're also motivated and passionate to engage in the creative activity.
What's special about the
The Durham Commission on Creativity in Education 2019 draws a helpful distinction between creativity as an abstract concept and the processes by which it can be embedded in schools. For our first creativity teacher training session, we focused on the creativity wheel, which explored the 5 dimensions of creativity, showing us the habits of mind and some teaching tools which could develop each of those habits. Note the green and amber colours display our first and second favoured creative habits of mind in teaching. The red showed an area that we least used, thus consolidating to us that there are many habits of mind which are considered as developing creativity. We all use a range of them in our teaching and learning, though at times we may sit in certain habits rather than exploring variety in our teaching and learning. We want to make our lessons creative but feel that there are barriers, time to plan, unity in language, and whether it is possible to be creative when some curriculums are so content heavy. It was also clear from your feedback that you loved being included in the research and the project. You want to be creative in your teaching and really care about your pupils and their learning experiences. This has led to some trust schools making creativity part of their self-evaluation and improvement plans, particularly in areas such as persistence and imagination. Many teachers began to make changes from this moment onwards to ensure that they were including activities that promoted a range of creative habits and verbs. We decided it was worth having a clearer poster in the classrooms to display these creative habits and verbs to be used by teachers and students in their lessons. Between 2015 and 2019, the Centre for Educational Research and Innovation took the 5-dimensional model of creative thinking and its starting point for an 11-country study designed to understand more about how creativity is taught and assessed in schools. The study has developed considerable understanding about pedagogies and assessment techniques with regard to creative thinking. A key finding was that models of creativity, however clear, need further translation for the classroom and that rubrics can help with this process. This is why we put together the creative habits of mind to include verbs that we can use with our students and also with students to teach each other. This is why it's so important to keep your posters of your creative habits of mind with the verbs in every classroom that you teach in and use them each lesson. As part of my project, I am creating a digital forum in which we can share all of the amazing research and suggestions that you've contributed towards the Teacher Toolkit for Creativity. Today, I wanted to share as much of those insights as possible with you, particularly in the areas that were highlighted earlier in persistence and imagination. So here is a little roundup of some of the contributions that you have made to have a quick flick through and just spend 1 minute on these impact slides. Consider which of these teacher tools could you use or adapt to make learning more effective and creative in your department, age range or classroom. Please remember that everything you have done is not been lost. Even if you don't see it today, it will be shared in the future as part of the digital forum and in future training sessions. Thank you so much for everything you have contributed, and particularly to my reps for facilitating this programme. I couldn't have completed a project on this scale without the support and contributions of my reps and all of us as a united trust. We have made leaps in creative educational advancement in 1 year. No mean feat considering the inspections, post-COVID conditions and strains on our own basic pay and conditions by the government. With all our help, I now have a bank of teacher tools which will become a digital leading learning hub for us to continue our creative journey and professional development. Many of my reps volunteered to present as part of this training session. I have picked 2 areas which are areas that staff felt they found difficult to explore and link to creativity. Even though this may not be your subject area, please do watch the 2 10-minute presentations. The first is by Faye Hodges, presenting how the creative habits of mind can be promoted in science and maths. The second is by Adam Williams, presenting how creativity can be enhanced through the use of IT. A final thank you from me. Please keep in touch and let me know how your own creative learning journey is going. Jot some thoughts and questions in your Da Vinci notebook and let's make teaching and learning fun, thoughtful and relevant to today's world. Never stop learning because life never stops teaching. All the best, Laura Wigglesworth.